I'm here with Tobias Leenaert, and it's great to meet you again, Tobias. How are
Good to see
you?
you always. I'm very good. It's a very nice vibe at this conference here in Luxembourg.
Yeah. And you just had a talk. What was it about this time?
So the talk was called Animal Activism Between Despair and Hope. And I tried to capture some of the emotions that an animal activist goes through. I try to capture or recognize the despair, the pessimism that we sometimes may feel, but I also give reasons to hope for the best, give reasons to think or to believe that this world that we dream of is possible.
Right. I feel that in the animal rights community, often we have very negative feelings about others, about those that are still consuming animals, that's still part of the animal abuse that is happening. And maybe that's not so strange, but you gave some reasons to have belief even in them who are not part of the movement we're in. Can you say some of them?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's really important to always realize that this change is happening all the time. So people are, not only are people going vegan all the time, and people can see, other vegans can see this in their life, the people who transform from being a meat eater to becoming a vegan, it happens all the time. But also, and even more important, there's people who are very invested in this whole meat story, in the meat industry, who are farmers themselves, and even they transfer to becoming the owner of a sanctuary rather than an animal farmer. And we've seen a talk here of people in Switzerland who have been successful in transforming or transfarming 135 farms, which I was very impressed by, which I was thinking was very inspirational. So that's one point. And then another point is you have to realize that these people are all influenced by a very gigantic meat industry. And so, like I said, the cards are stacked against them becoming more aware, because a lot of money is put in trying to make them unaware, right? To remain for them unaware. And that's done by humongous subsidies. There's so much subsidies going to the meat industry. There's so much more money going to lobbying for the animal causes than for the plant-based causes. In the US, that's a difference of 160 times, right? There's governmental guidelines about what is healthy eating, which are completely wrong and abusive towards animals, obviously. There's media bias. So in this context, you can understand that people are not as aware as they could be, and we have to understand that. And this may make us a little bit more tolerant. We can say, like, look, they have been fed all these lies and half-truths and propaganda, and that's why they are where they are still.
And I think maybe the biggest reasons why not more people go vegan or change their views on animal rights is the social situation. It's so uncomfortable for many to be different, to stand out, to not being appreciative when you are served something in someone else's home. Or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I always say is most people eat meat because most people eat meat. People do what other people do, and as there's more and more people changing, change will become more and more easy. But we're not at that point yet. And if you are one person in a family of 6 or whatever, and they all eat meat, and you want to change, it's going to make the change a lot more difficult. But as soon as one person is brave enough and strong enough to change, they can make it a lot easier for the other people in that family or in that group.
This morning we had a country presentation on Israel, very interesting. They described how the animal rights movement in Israel was growing many years. But now it has changed. So now it has, for the last couple of years, it has gone down quite rapidly. And in Sweden I also see that if not going down, we're stagnated somehow. We are not so many activists. There are good vegan alternatives, but they're not a strong animal rights movement, and that can get me a little bit depressed. And you also said some things about why we should believe in ourselves, in our movements. What do you have to say here?
Yeah, so I think it's very important that we have a strong, unified, resilient movement, and there's unfortunately still too much people fighting themselves rather than fighting the meat lobby. So that is a problem, and I think the main thing that we need for that, as I said in the talk, is trust. Is trust that these other people who differ from us in terms of their strategies and tactics and in terms of how they think we will create the vegan world, we have to trust that in spite of these differences, they want the same thing as us. So if we can believe, like, look, these and these and these people, they have different strategies, but they want the same thing, then it should be a lot easier to work together. So that is one thing. I think in terms of, I mean, that's of course not the only reason why maybe we are maybe less active the last few years. There's been COVID. I think that's an important factor. We have to rebuild some of the things. There's an economic crisis. Maybe it's also positive in the sense that, like, maybe some people from the activist world are shifting to more professional ways of business activism, and maybe that's why not present anymore in this world. I know people who are active in the vegan business, and I understand that maybe sometimes they cannot do more radical or fundamentalist activism from that corner. So it could be that we are, like, I think that, I mean, we had this like very strong hardcore group, but what we have now is more. This whole group has become more dispersed in the whole of society. So there's vegan teachers and vegan business people, and there's vegans everywhere. And so they can do their things also from the position within their job, I think. So that's also activism, but they might not necessarily come to the streets.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think also, if I look at different movements, that often you have like a growing movement, you have a momentum, it's growing, it's exciting. But then a quite natural thing, I think, is maybe in cycles, that it will go down. It can't go up all the time, and maybe we just should expect. And they said that actually in the country report, that they were not ready for it to go down. But if we realize this is sometimes the way movements go, up and down, maybe then it's easier to use it when it's going good, but also to see how can we continue like with maybe more creative things, or how can we keep what we have, the most important things, when it goes down, so it doesn't crash rather than can go up again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm assuming that most movements, they know their ups and their downs, and like if you zoom out, you will see a graph that goes like this, but if you zoom in, you will see something like this, right? But it's also important to look at what to realize, like, or to consider what metrics you're looking at, right? Are you looking at how many people are coming to a protest? I mean, that is one indicator, but it could be that the movement has shifted from protest tactics to something else. And so these people, again, don't show up at the protest, but they are doing something else. So you have to look at, I think, different metrics. You have to look at consumption, you have to look at activism, you have to look at production numbers, at sales, money, etc., etc. Yeah.
So another topic, many times you have been discussing how we communicate our message of veganism, of animal rights. And I've been thinking of this lately when I've heard some animal rights activists use words like, if you eat meat, you're an animal abuser, or even going to places and saying shame on you very directly. What do you think about those tactics?
Yeah. So I have changed my mind maybe a little bit. What I'm thinking now is that maybe many of those tactics will be useful at some point, and I see us getting closer to a point where they are useful. I think they're not the best thing to do yet. I mean, shaming people at this point is not good yet, but I can assume that at some point this could be useful. It's just a matter of like how many people are already on board. You know, if you have 95% of the people eating meat, it doesn't make much sense to shame somebody for doing so. But if you would have at some point, there's maybe 50% of the people eating meat, or many people going partly vegan or vegetarian, or in some circumstances or some situations like progressive NGOs or whatever, that's already the case. There maybe you could maybe do some soft shaming, maybe saying like,
what's that? Yeah.
I mean, it would be like, not like you're a murderer, but like, really, are you still eating meat? Like, really, you still haven't discovered, like, you know, like and maybe that could work to some extent. And I think there could be some research done about that. I'm usually not doing it yet, but I might try it when I see that other things have failed. Like if I have been friendly all the time for years, then maybe I try like a tactic like that. Also because it is easier now to be a vegan. So it's harder to understand that people are still not moving, or when they're not moving, it's harder to see like, okay, what is keeping you? You know, I understand what kept you 10 years ago. What's keeping you now? You are in a city, in a progressive environment. You have all these options in the supermarket. What is keeping you? And I think that now and then, increasing the pressure a little bit in those situations can be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess also, I mean, I'm coming from the peace movement, and I've been reading and studying a lot of nonviolence, both as principles but also as tactics. And I guess also for me, it goes against that kind of ideology of being nice, of being friendly, but also being radical in what kind of actions you do and so on. So I guess, I mean, this, like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, they talked about loving the enemy and so on.
Yeah.
And shaming someone, it's kind of goes against that. So I'm trying to analyze how I feel about those kind of words.
Well, maybe it's a matter of semantics and of word choice. Maybe it's not shaming, but maybe it's like being very kind, but still saying the truth. Still saying like, look, I like you as a person, but I do not understand why you still engage in this behavior. Right. So that's maybe not shaming, but that is like really wondering like why, what is keeping you, like having an honest conversation about that. That is still straight to the point. Sure. Maybe that is helpful.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. I agree. You can be straight, but also kind and understanding where they're coming from at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to talk about communication. But someone said when you use words like the animals are treated like it was the Holocaust, or using the word rape when it comes to dairy production, that we use these words because it gets media, it gets attention, because we need to get it noticed. Do you think that might be true, or does it have negative consequences that are worse than getting this attention?
I mean, if you look quite extreme, then I think it's true that we'll get more media. But I do believe that there is such a thing like bad media, and I do believe that we might be conforming stereotypes of vegans which are negative. So I think it would be better at this point not to do that. And I think that there might be tactics to like get media, other tactics to do that that are maybe smarter. And it's really unfortunate that, like, I've seen it in many countries, that the most loud and outspoken and extremist sounding vegans, they get platforms on the media, which is not good, which is the way the media works, unfortunately.
And why would you say it's wrong to use these kind of words and more radical ways of talking? I
think it's a bit too early. Most people are not ready for it, even if I believe that there's a thing like a Holocaust going on or whatever, or genocide. I think that's the case. I mean, you can compare it with that. But many people don't see it like that. So maybe it's better to like look at a way that just makes you more relatable and makes your content more relatable. And so if we know, or if we think that those words don't have good results, then we can maybe just talk about, I mean, there's many ways to say it. I mean, like what if I say we are killing each year more animals for food than there have ever lived humans in the entire history? You know, that is a pretty spectacular quote as well, and it doesn't mention genocide or whatever. So there's ways probably to express this that are not so not turning off so many people.
You say turning off. Do you think people will get like more defensive if they hear those words, or as you say, creating strengthening stereotypes they already have, maybe?
That is part of it. I think what's also part of it is people are always looking for excuses to do nothing, always looking for excuses not to hear you, and so I think our job should be to give them as little excuses as possible. And if using such a word, Holocaust or whatever, gives them an excuse not to listen, then let's not use the word. But of course, these are all like gut feelings and intuitions, and we don't have a lot of research for all these things, but this is like how I experience it personally.
Yeah, I was thinking about, do you know any research on this? What kind of words we use, what is more effective in the long run and so on?
Yeah, it doesn't come to mind right away, but I'm sure there are things. I mean, there is research in general about guilt usually not working very well. Guilt being an emotion that creates more distance than that it creates people coming closer. And the danger is a bit that probably many people in the animal rights movement today are more prone to feel guilty, are more wanting to be good people than the average person, and so they think that, well, this guilt worked for me, so it's probably going to work for them also. But that's probably in many cases not true.
Let me end with a question that you got when you were on stage here earlier today. If you are maybe a young person or starting as an animal rights activist, what would be your top suggestions on what to do, how to start?
Yeah, so I would make a little exercise, and I would try to combine three things. So the one thing is, what am I really passionate about? Where is something I feel fire about? Like, it could be a certain type of animals or a certain type of intervention or whatever that you're really passionate about. That's one thing. The second one is, what am I good at? It could be writing, could be speaking, could be organizing, could be cooking, whatever. So look at that. And the third one would be, where is the impact? Where can I like really have a significant impact? And if you like draw this in three circles, there's a cross section, and look for that cross section where those three things meet. So that could be a little exercise that you can do for yourself.
And fortunately, you will find something in, maybe not always, but hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully there's something there, or maybe there's just a cross section of two of these things.
Right.
And also a practical tip: look at the website of Animal Advocacy Careers. So if you enter that in Google, then there's a whole website of resources for people who want to get started with an animal career.
Thank you so much, Tobias, for talking to me, and thanks for your work. Yeah.
Thank you, and good luck, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.